What if I told you there is a bridge where the official story doesn't match the evidence? Where a man vanished into a river, but the river never gave him back. I'm talking about the Stony Creek Bridge in Elizabethton, Tennessee. On paper, it's a simple tragic case from May of 1987. A fight, a gunshot, a frantic drive to this bridge. Police called it a murder-suicide. But here is the first fact that changes everything. They never found his body. Not a trace. In a deep river that flows into a lake, that is statistically strange, almost unheard of after a thorough search. Now, imagine being the family he left behind. In the weeks after, their home phone would ring. They'd answer and hear only the crushing sound of rushing water. Sometimes a wet, choked whisper. How is that possible? For decades, drivers on that road have reported a dark figure standing on the bridge, staring down. Police race there every time and find nothing. No one. This isn't just one ghost story, it's a pattern. A woman ended her life there in 1989. Others followed. This spot seems to collect tragedy. So what are we really dealing with? A perfect storm of awful coincidence and human grief. Or is there something more, something that lingers in the cold steel and the sound of the water? This is not just about a ghost. This is about a mystery that has challenged a community for over 35 years. We will look at the police reports, the witness accounts, and the chilling patterns that logic struggles to explain. If you've ever wondered how a place can remember or why some stories refuse to die, you need to watch this entire video. The ending isn't what you think. It will change how you listen to the world. So, stay until the very end. And if you want to join us in uncovering truths like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Let's begin. Let's go back. Not just in your mind, but in your senses. It's a spring night in the Tennessee mountains, May 27th, 1987. The air is thick, maybe a little warm. Crickets are singing in the grass by the Watauga River. And the Stony Creek Bridge, that solid gray shape, just sits there in the dark. It's a quiet Thursday night. Nothing special until everything changes. Inside a home, not far from this quiet bridge, there is an argument. We don't know what it was about, but we know it ended with the terrible, sharp sound of a gunshot. One life was over, right there. And in that heartbeat of silence after the noise, a new story was born. A story of panic, of a car engine starting, of headlights cutting through the dark. Those headlights would have found the bridge quickly. It's a lonely place, even now. Back then, it was a perfect, silent secret keeper. Imagine pulling over onto that gravel. Imagine stepping out. The only sound is the water, moving fast and cold below you. What was in his mind in that final moment? The police report tells us what they believe happened next. They say he climbed over the railing, and he jumped. But here is where the clean, simple story they gave us starts to fray at the edges. You see, the police were called. They found the car. They found evidence of the first tragedy back at the home, and they began their search here, at the bridge. They shined lights over the black water. They called out. They waited. This was not a slow, sleepy creek. This was the Watauga River, flowing with mountain runoff, powerful and deep, headed for the huge expanse of Watauga Lake. They launched boats, they used draglines, they searched for days, and they found nothing. Not a shoe, not a piece of clothing, not a body. Think about that for a second. A man goes into a river from a known point. The authorities are called quickly, and he completely, utterly vanishes. This is the first and biggest crack in the official story. In most cases like this, The river gives up its secrets. The human body, eventually, returns to the surface. It gets caught on a branch, or it washes up on a bank. But not this time. This time, the water swallowed everything and gave nothing back. So, on paper, the case was given a label: murder-suicide. It's a tidy, two-word answer. It wraps things up. But how can you close a book when the last page is missing? How can you be so sure of the ending when the main character is just gone? And then, the stories from the family began to trickle out. In the days that followed, the home phone would ring. A family member would pick it up. And on the line was silence. Or was it? Some said it was the distinct, hollow roar of rushing water, like holding a shell to your ear, but louder, more violent, and sometimes, in that noise, a voice, a strained, wet whisper saying a name. Then, a click, and the line would go dead. These calls happened more than once. They were investigated. But this was 1987. Tracing a call wasn't always easy, and they found no answer. So, let's look at what we have from that one night. We have a violent act. We have a frantic escape to the bridge. We have a disappearance that makes little practical sense. And we have these impossible phone calls, echoing with the sound of the very river that supposedly took him. This isn't how a normal tragedy ends. A normal tragedy has a clear bottom. This one, it has no bottom at all. It's just a long, dark drop into a question. That question hung over the bridge that summer, and it has never really left. It's the question that turns a location into a legend. Because when the facts leave a hole, human imagination rushes in to fill it. And the first thing we have to ask, the thing that chills me every time I think about it, is simple. If he didn't die that night in the river, where did he go? Or perhaps more frighteningly, what if he never really left? So we have a man who jumped into the river. That is what the record states. But a river is not a magic hole that makes things vanish. It is water, moving over land, following rules of physics. To understand the mystery, we have to understand the water itself. That night, the Watauga River was carrying the cold melt from the spring mountains. It was moving with purpose, maybe 8 or 10 miles an hour in the channel. It was deep, and it was dark, and it flowed straight into Watauga Lake, a massive man-made reservoir. That lake is over 100 feet deep in places, and it covers more than 6,000 acres. That's huge. It's a vast, underwater landscape of old river channels and drowned trees. Now let's talk about what happens to a body. It's a hard thing to think about, but it's the core of the mystery. In the first day or two, a body will typically sink. The current carries it along the bottom. But within a week, sometimes sooner, natural processes cause it to surface. It will then float, often for days, until it washes against a bank or gets caught on something. This is not guesswork. This is what search and recovery teams know. It's why they go back to search the same banks again, days later. They expect the river to give up what it has taken. And that's what makes the 1987 case so strange to experts. The search was not lazy. It began quickly, that very night. They used boats. They used dragging equipment. They walked the banks for miles downstream. They had a known point of entry, the bridge. This was not a search in a huge open ocean. It was a search in a river that flows into a lake, a contained system. Yet, they found nothing. Not then. Not ever. Consider the statistics. In one study of water recoveries in similar Appalachian reservoirs, over 95% of bodies were found within a 5-mile radius of where they went in. Most were found in the first 2 weeks. They were found snagged on brush, beached on a shore, or floating in a quiet cove. So we have to ask, was this man the tragic exception? The one body in 100 that defies everything we know? Or does his complete disappearance point us toward a different truth? Think of the lake like a silent, watery room. You drop a key in that room. You search every corner with a fine-toothed net. The key is simply not there. What does that tell you? It tells you the key might never have been dropped in that room at all. This is the unsettling logic we must face. The lack of a body is not just a missing piece. It is a loud, screaming piece of evidence all by itself. It challenges the very first conclusion the police made. This is where your doubt is not just okay, it's necessary. The official story says the river took him, but the river, when asked, gave no proof. It stayed silent. That silence is what the legend is built on. That silence is what allowed the other stories, the phone calls, the sightings, to take root and grow. If they had found him, the story ends. A sad, terrible, but closed chapter. But they didn't. And so the chapter never closed. It was left open to the wind, and the wind carried in whispers. So we are left with two possibilities, and both are difficult to sit with. The first is a near miracle of bad luck, a man's body performing a vanishing act that baffled experienced searchers. The second is that the jump into the river never happened. And if that is true, then what did happen on that bridge? What did the family hear on the phone? And what or who have people been seeing there ever since? The water remembers nothing, they say. But what if the bridge does? Now we come to the part of the story that is hardest to explain with facts alone. It lives in the space between grief and something else. After the search teams left the river, after the news articles slowed down, the family was left in a quiet, broken house. And then the phone would ring. This was 1987. There were no cell phones, no caller ID. A ringing phone was a question mark. You had to answer it to know who was there. And so they would answer. What they say they heard changes everything. It wasn't a normal call. There was no hello. Instead, they described a low, rushing roar, the unmistakable sound of churning water. Imagine holding a phone up to a roaring faucet or a raging stream. That's sound. And in the background of that liquid noise, sometimes a voice, a whisper that seemed to fight its way through the current, a strained, wet utterance of a single name. Then the line would go dead. These calls happened more than once. They were investigated. But here is a crucial piece of data about the world of 1987. Our phone system was different. Tracing a call was not instant. It was a process. It often required the call to stay active for several minutes and needed the phone company to get involved. These calls were too short. They were ghosts in the machine, impossible to pin down. The police likely listened with sympathy, but without a trace. What could they do? They probably filed it under the grief of the family. A trick of the mind. But what if it wasn't? Let's look at this from every angle. First, the angle of deep grief. Psychology tells us that in extreme trauma, the mind can play tricks. It can create sounds, even visions, of the lost person. This is a real documented thing. The heart wants to hear a voice so badly that the brain sometimes provides it. So, could this explain the whispers? Possibly. But the sound of rushing water, that specific, consistent detail from multiple family members, that is harder to write off as imagination. Grief might make you hear a voice, but would it fabricate such a clear, environmental sound? Then, there is the angle of a cruel hoax. Could someone have been tormenting the family? It is a terrible thought, but we have to consider it. Yet, it doesn't fit. To pull this off, the prankster would need access to a loud, constant source of flowing water every time they called. They would have to know when to call. And for what gain? The police were involved. The risk was high, and the reward was just more sadness. It feels pointless and strangely elaborate for a small town. This leaves us with a third angle, the one that sends a chill down your spine. What if the calls were neither a trick of the mind nor a trick of a person? The description is too precise. The sound of the water first, the voice fighting through it. It matches perfectly the idea of a call placed from somewhere, submerged. It echoes the fate everyone believed happened. It is as if the event itself was trying to call home. Think about what that means for a second. We accept that a radio signal can travel through the air. We accept that a sound wave can travel through water. But what if a moment of extreme terror and sorrow could also create a signal? A kind of emotional broadcast that gets stuck, and sometimes, under the right quiet conditions, it plays back. The family's phone line, in their shared, silent grief, might have become an antenna for a signal they never wanted to receive. You are sitting in your living room. The phone rings, you pick it up, and instead of a human, you hear a river. What would you feel? First, confusion. Then, a deep, rising horror. Because that sound doesn't belong in your ear. It belongs outside, in the dark, under a bridge. It is the sound of the very thing that took your loved one away. And in that sound, a whisper. Is that a gift? Or a punishment? Is it a spirit trying to speak? Or is it just the echo of a terrible moment, endlessly repeating itself in a place we don't understand? The phone calls force us to ask a boundary-pushing question. Can tragedy, under the right conditions, record itself, not on tape, but on the very fabric of a place? And if a place can hold a memory, could a memory sometimes reach out? These calls are the heart of the bridge's mystery. They are the reason the story moved from a sad crime to a lingering haunting. Because a body can disappear, but a voice on a phone, a voice that brings the river with it, that has a different kind of life. It lives in the ear of the listener, forever. The story of 1987 is the loudest one. It's the one with the gunshot, and the chase, and the mystery. But if you listen to the history of the Stony Creek Bridge, you hear other whispers, softer, sadder echoes that came before and after. The bridge does not just hold one story. It holds a pattern, and that pattern makes the mystery deeper and far more unsettling. Let's talk about the other names, the other dates. Just 2 years after the famous case, in 1989, another tragedy happened here. A woman, 51 years old, came to the bridge in the early morning. She left a note behind. She then jumped from this same structure into the same cold water. This time, the water did give her back. Her body was recovered from Watauga Lake. Her story has a terrible, clear ending. There is no missing body here, no question of what happened, just a final, sad decision. Then there is another case, not as clear in the records. An older man, 54 years old, was found dead at the east end of the Butler Bridge. The reports call him a suspected suicide. His story is a fragment, a piece of the puzzle that is worn down by time. Now, you might think this is just a sad coincidence. A bridge sees one tragedy, then another. But when you map these events, a chilling picture forms. This spot has been, for decades, a place where people in ultimate pain have come to end their suffering. It has a reputation. In sociology and psychology, There is a concept called suicide cluster. It's when one suicide, or a famous location, seems to influence others. The Golden Gate Bridge is the most famous example, but there are lesser-known ones like this bridge in Tennessee. Why here? Let's look at the place itself. It's isolated, but not too hard to reach. The drop is high enough. The water below promises a certain quick end. But it's more than just practical. After 1987, the bridge was no longer just a bridge. It became a symbol. It became the local place known for endings. Someone in deep pain who has heard the old stories might feel drawn here. It's like the story itself becomes a script, and lost people feel they are following a path others have walked. This is a devastating thought. It means tragedy can be contagious. It means a location can absorb pain until that pain becomes part of its identity, almost like a scent on the air. Could someone sensitive to that energy, drowning in their own sorrow, somehow feel it? Could they mistake that heavy, sad feeling for an invitation, or even a command? Think about the weight that adds to the 1987 story. If that man did jump, his was not the first act of despair here, but it was the one that broke the dam. It was the one that launched the legends, the phone calls, the sightings. His mysterious act may have poured rocket fuel on the bridge's dark reputation. It turned it from a sad spot into a magnet. So we have to ask a new and very difficult question. When people report feeling a heavy sadness on the bridge, are they feeling the ghost of one man? Or are they feeling the collected weight of all the tragedies, layer upon layer, like old paint? Is the figure people see always the same man from 1987? Or could it sometimes be the woman from 1989? Or the man whose date we lost? Does grief blur into one shape? This changes how we see everything. It suggests the haunting might not be personal. It might be environmental. The bridge itself, through the repeated actions of the deeply hurt, has become a wound in the landscape. A place where the barrier between our world of suffering and whatever is next is just a little thinner, a little more raw. The other shadows are crucial. They tell us that the story of Stony Creek Bridge is not a single event. It is a chorus of goodbyes, all sung into the same cold air over the same dark water. And when you stand there now, you're not just listening for one voice. You're listening for all of them. You're standing in a place where the final thought of many souls has lingered. What does that do to a place? More importantly, what might that place be able to do back? Let's talk about what people see. This is where the story leaves the old reports and enters the living world. It happens on ordinary nights to ordinary people. Someone is driving home from work or coming back from visiting family. Their headlights cut through the mountain dark, and the Stony Creek Bridge appears ahead. It's just a shape. Then they see him, a man, standing on the walkway of the bridge or leaning against the railing, looking down at the water. He is just there, a dark silhouette against the night. The driver's stories are strikingly similar. He is alone. He wears dark, plain clothes. He doesn't move to wave for help. He doesn't turn to look at the car. He is completely focused on the river below. And in that moment, the driver feels a chill. Something is wrong. This feels out of place. So many of them do the right thing. They call the police. They report a man on the bridge who might be in trouble, who might be thinking of jumping. And here is the next consistent fact. The police respond. They take these calls seriously. They arrive quickly, lights flashing. They search the entire bridge, foot by foot. They check the banks below with powerful spotlights. They look for a car parked nearby. They find nothing, no one, every single time. The man is gone without a trace. He leaves no footprints, makes no sound, and vanishes into thin air. The police are left with a concerned citizen's report and an empty bridge. This has happened not once or twice, but many times over the years. The call logs would show it. It is a repeat performance. Now let's break down what this could mean. In the world of paranormal research, there are two main ideas for this kind of sighting. The first is an intelligent haunting. This is what we typically think of as a ghost, a conscious spirit, aware of its surroundings, maybe even interacting with them. It could be the man from 1987, forever stuck in his final moment of decision, replaying it on a loop for eternity. The second idea is a residual haunting. Think of this as an echo, a powerful emotional event, like a trauma, imprinting itself on a location, like a video recording played over and over. There is no conscious spirit there. It's just energy, replaying. This figure would not see you. It would not hear your car. It would just be an image made of memory and feeling, a shadow cast by a long-ago moment. So, which one fits our bridge? The figure never interacts. It never responds. It just stares at the water and disappears. That sounds very much like a residual echo, a snapshot of a man in his final, private instant. But then, why does it appear so often to drivers? Is it just random? Or is there a trigger? This leads to a profound and personal question for you. If this is just a mindless echo, why does it feel so intentional? Why does it appear specifically to people who are alone in their cars, in the vulnerable dark? Does the energy of a living person, carrying their own quiet sadness or stress, somehow act as a battery? Does it give the echo just enough power to flicker into view for a few seconds? Imagine you are that driver. You see him. Your heart jumps. You call for help. And then the authorities find nothing. They might even give you a kind, but doubting look. You are left with two choices. You can believe you were tired, that your eyes played tricks, or you have to believe you saw something that cannot be explained, something that belongs to the bridge. This figure is the bridge's silent keeper. He is the anchor of its legend. The phone calls were private, for the family, but this is public. This is a show the bridge puts on for the community, a reminder that the story is not over. He is the main character in a play that never gets to the final act. He is always about to jump, but he never does. He is forever trapped in the before. So the next time you cross a lonely bridge at night and your headlights sweep the rails, think about this. What are you really looking at? Are you seeing just steel and shadow, or are you passing through a stage where a tragedy is forever rehearsed? The man on the bridge doesn't need a name anymore. He has become a job. He is the permanent resident, the keeper of the silence, the watcher of the water. And his only role is to make sure no one ever forgets the question: what happens in the space between seeing him and the moment he vanishes? To understand why a story sticks to a place, we have to look at the place itself, not just as a background, but as a character. The Stony Creek Bridge isn't haunted by accident. Its very design, its location, its physical reality, all of it works together to create a perfect stage for tragedy and mystery. This is the geology of sorrow, how the land itself shapes the story. First, let's talk height and perspective. The bridge sits high above the Watauga River. When you stand on the walkway and look down, you are not looking at gentle water. You are looking at a drop. That distance creates a feeling of finality. It also creates a strange, quiet separation. The world up on the road feels normal, but the world below, the river, feels like another realm entirely. You are literally standing on a threshold between two worlds, the solid world of cars and homes and the flowing, cold world of the water. In many traditions, thresholds are powerful. They are doorways, and some doors are easier to walk through than others. Now let's talk sound. This is crucial. When you are on that bridge, especially at night, the dominant sound is the river. It's a constant, rushing roar. It's white noise. Psychologists have studied what constant white noise does to a troubled mind. It can drown out thoughts. It can make your own internal voice seem quiet, or even silent. It can create a kind of trance. For someone in deep pain, that sound isn't just water. It's an invitation to silence their thoughts forever. It promises an end to the noise inside by matching it with a bigger noise outside. Then, there is isolation. The bridge is close to town, but it feels worlds away. It's surrounded by trees, tucked into a curve. It's not a bustling city overpass. You can be alone there very, very easily. This isolation does two things. It provides privacy for a final act, and later, it provides the perfect empty space for our imagination to fill. Ghosts don't like crowded, bright places. They prefer the edges, the lonely spots. This bridge is a masterclass in being an edge. Now let's add the material. It's made of concrete and steel. These are cold, industrial materials. They don't comfort you. They don't feel alive. They feel permanent and unfeeling. Standing on that hard surface, touching that cold railing, you feel a stark reality. There is no softness here. This place doesn't care. And sometimes, to a person who feels too much, a place that doesn't care can feel like a relief. Put it all together. A high threshold, a hypnotic, roaring sound, deep isolation, cold, unfeeling materials. You have a recipe. This isn't just a bridge where bad things happen. This is a bridge that by its very nature attracts and even encourages a certain kind of energy. It is built for contemplation of an end. This forces a scary question. Did the people who came here bring the tragedy to the bridge, or did the bridge, with its height and its sound and its cold heart, call out to the tragedy in them? We think of locations as passive, but what if some locations are active? What if the specific mix of sensory details at Stony Creek works on a fragile mind like a key in a lock? This connects back to everything. The missing body, the river's power below is real. The phone calls with the sound of water, that roaring white noise is the bridge's main sound. The figure people see? He is always looking down from that high threshold perspective. Every part of the legend is rooted in the physical truth of the place. So you are not just listening to a ghost story. You are listening to an environmental story. The bridge is more than a setting. It is an amplifier. It takes human despair and gives it an echo chamber made of river sound and empty space. It turns a moment of pain into a lasting echo. The geology, the shape of the land, the flow of the water, the height of the steel, traps the sorrow. It holds it in place. Long after a person is gone, the place still plays the tape of their lowest moment, using the river as its speaker. Is that a haunting? Or is it just terrible, perfect physics? The line between those two ideas is what we stand on when we talk about this bridge. And that line, like the bridge itself, feels very, very thin. A story doesn't live in police files. It lives in people. It lives in the way they lower their voice when they talk about a certain place. To understand the Stony Creek Bridge, You have to listen to the community of Elizabethton and Stony Creek itself. They are the keepers of the story. They have lived with it for decades, and their experiences paint a picture of a wound that never fully healed. I've spoken to people who grew up here. Their stories are not about evidence, but about feeling. One man, let's call him James, has fished the Watauga his whole life. He told me he knows every good spot, except one. He will not fish within sight of the bridge pillars after the sun goes down. It's not a rule he made. It's a feeling. He described it as a heavy sadness that comes out of nowhere. It's not fear, he said. It's deeper. It's like the air gets thick and your own thoughts turn dark. The fish don't bite there anyway, he claims, as if they feel it too. Then there are the parents. For generations, mothers and fathers in this community have used the bridge as a quiet warning. A teenager talks about running away. A friend is acting reckless. The story comes up. You don't want to end up like the stories from the bridge. It's not said to be scary. It's said to be sobering. The bridge has become the local symbol for the point of no return. It is woven into the fabric of how they teach their children about consequences and despair. Imagine that. A piece of infrastructure becoming a moral lesson. Now think about the practical impact. Every time a driver calls 911 to report the man on the bridge, a police officer responds. I spoke to a retired county deputy. He told me they always took those calls with utmost seriousness, every single one. But after years of finding nothing, a pattern emerged in their minds too. They would race to the scene, lights flashing, hearts pumping, ready to save a life. And they'd find empty, quiet darkness. He said the silence on that bridge after such a call was the strangest part. It was a silence that felt watchful. They were doing their job, but they were also stepping into a story everyone knew. This creates a powerful feedback loop. A person feels a strange sadness there. They hear a legend. They later see a shadow, or think they do. They call the police. The police respond, reinforcing the idea that something is wrong there. The news of the call spreads through town. The legend grows stronger. The story feeds itself. It becomes a living thing. The community, by believing and retelling and watching, gives the story energy. It becomes a shared possession, a terrible shared possession. So, we have to ask a difficult question. What is more real? The cold facts of the 1987 case sheet, or the warm, breathing belief of thousands of people over 35 years? Which one has more power to shape reality? If everyone in a town agrees a place is haunted, does that collective agreement make it haunted? Their shared fear, their shared sadness, becomes an atmosphere. It becomes a weather that hangs over the bridge. This is the community's scar. It's not a physical mark, it's a psychological one. The unresolved mystery of that night became a seed, and the community, in its compassion and its fear, watered that seed with every story told at a kitchen table, with every warning given to a teenager, with every anxious glance toward the bridge on a foggy night. They didn't create the initial tragedy, but they may have built the house that the legend lives in. You can feel this in the way they talk. They don't shout the stories. They share them quietly, like they are handing you something fragile and a little dangerous. There is a pride in having such a profound mystery, and a deep sadness for the pain at its core. They are protectors of the story, and in a way, the story protects them. It marks a boundary. It says, here is where light turns to shadow. Be careful. The bridge is theirs, and the haunting, whatever it truly is part of their inheritance. It's in the soil, in the river mist, and in the quiet understanding that passes between neighbors when the subject comes up. They don't need to see a ghost to know it's there. They feel the weight of the story every day, and that weight is perhaps the most real thing of all. We have gathered the facts. We have felt the weight of the community's story. Now let's try on different lenses, different ways of seeing what might be happening. This is not about proving one idea right. It is about asking which framework makes the most sense of all the strange pieces. The story of Stony Creek Bridge is a puzzle. Paranormal research offers a few different boxes the pieces might fit into. Let's open them one by one. The first box is called the stone tape theory. Imagine if strong emotion, like terror or sorrow, could be recorded into a location, the way a videotape records sound and picture. The theory says that materials like stone, water, or iron can soak up emotional energy during a traumatic event. Then, under the right conditions, they play it back. This is often called a residual haunting. It's just a replay, no conscious ghost. Now think of our bridge, the steel girders, the concrete, the flowing water below. All of those could be the tape. The event in 1987 was a lightning bolt of trauma, violence, panic, and a vanishing. If this theory is true, the bridge might be replaying that moment. The figure people see? That's the recording. The phone calls with the sound of water? That's the audio track, somehow bleeding through. It fits the repetitive, unseeing nature of the sightings. It's a convincing box for many of the pieces. But then, we open the second box, the intelligent haunting. This is the classic ghost. A conscious spirit, aware of its surroundings, maybe even interacting with them. This spirit might have unfinished business. It might be confused or trapped. Does this fit? The figure never interacts. But what about the phone calls? Could a conscious spirit be trying to communicate? Trying to say it's sorry or it's lost? The calls were to family. That feels personal. That feels like a targeted action, not a random replay. This box suggests the man from that night is still there, in some form, trying to reach the people he left behind. It's a sadder, more intimate idea. Then there's a third, more expansive box, portal or threshold theory. This idea says certain locations aren't just haunted by one event or one spirit. Instead, they are thin places, weak spots in the fabric between our world and somewhere else. These spots attract spiritual energy. They can act as a door. This would explain the multiple tragedies, the layers of sadness. It's not just one man haunting the bridge. The bridge itself is a doorway, and sorrow from different times is drawn to it, gets stuck near it, or passes through it. The heavy feeling people report isn't a single ghost. It's the draft from that door being left open. The figure seen could be different people from different times, all glimpsed through the same thin veil. So, which box fits best? The stone tape theory explains the repetitive sightings perfectly. The intelligent haunting explains the phone calls. The portal theory explains the cumulative weight and the cluster of tragedies. But here is the truly chilling thought. What if more than one box is correct? What if the initial event in 1987 was so powerful it didn't just make a recording? What if it actually cracked something open? The recording plays on a loop, the residual figure. But through that crack, a conscious awareness also leaks, the phone calls. And the crack itself, now open, draws other similar energies to it, the other suicides, the collective dread. This framework changes your perspective entirely. You are no longer looking for a ghost. You are looking at a wounded location, a place where the rules are broken. The bridge isn't just haunted, it is damaged. The violent mystery of that night didn't put a ghost there. It put a fracture in the reality of that spot. And everything since, the feelings, the sights, the sounds, is just energy, memory, and perhaps consciousness seeping out of that fracture. This makes the community's role even more powerful. By believing, by fearing, by telling the story, are they applying pressure to that fracture? Are they keeping it from healing? Or are they simply pointing out a crack that was always there, a flaw in the landscape we usually ignore? The lens of the paranormal doesn't give us easy answers, but it gives us a vocabulary for the fear, and it leaves you with one last, personal question. If you were to stand on that bridge tonight, would you be an observer, or would you, just by being there, become a part of the story the bridge is forever trying to tell? Everything you've heard so far points towards something beyond our understanding. But what if it isn't? What if there is a simpler, darker, and in some ways more tragic explanation? We need to play devil's advocate now. We need to put the supernatural lens down and pick up the lens of cold, hard logic. Because the human mind and human coincidence can create miracles of misunderstanding. Let's walk through it. Start with the body. It's true that most bodies surface, but most is not all. There are exceptional cases. The Watauga River flows into a massive, deep lake with a tangled underwater forest of drowned trees. It is possible, however unlikely, for a body to become snagged deep below, held down by currents or debris, and never release. It is a 1 in 1,000 chance. But 1 in 1,000 chances happen. They happen every day. The absence of proof is not proof of something else. It is just an absence. A sad, frustrating absence. Now, the phone calls. Consider the state of the family. They had just suffered a horrific, shocking trauma. A loved one was dead. Another was missing and presumed dead. Grief is a powerful, distorting force. Auditory hallucinations are a well-documented part of acute grief. The mind, desperate for one more connection, can manufacture the sound of a voice. The static on a phone line can sound like rushing water if you are listening for it, if you are expecting it. These calls came during the peak of their trauma. Is it more likely that a supernatural force hacked the phone lines, or that a heartbroken family in a silent house heard the echoes of their own unbearable loss in the imperfect technology of a 1987 telephone? The simpler answer is often the human one. Next, the sightings. The man on the bridge. Think about the location. It is a lonely road. People walk there. Sometimes a person might stop their car and get out to look at the river. A driver going 50 miles an hour sees this person for 2 seconds in their headlights. In that flash, the brain registers person on bridge. By the time they get home and call police, 10 minutes have passed. The person who was just getting some air has driven away. The police arrive to an empty bridge. This isn't a ghost. This is a matter of timing and assumption. Once the story exists, every shadow on the bridge becomes that man. This is called confirmation bias. You see what you expect to see. The feeling of sadness? That's powerful too. But feelings are contagious. If you know a friend is sad, you can feel heavy around them. If you know a place is associated with death, you will feel a solemn weight there. You bring the feeling with you. It's a reflection of your own knowledge, not a force coming from the concrete. The bridge is a mirror. It gives back the emotion you project onto it. And the other tragedies? The 1989 case? The others? This is the most devastating part of the counter-argument. The 1987 case created a reputation. It put the Stony Creek Bridge on the map of despair. A person in crisis, looking for an end, might remember that story. They might think that is a place where people go. The bridge's notoriety becomes a deadly lure. This is a documented sociological effect. Suicide contagion. One highly publicized death can influence others. The later tragedies aren't echoes of a ghost. They are echoes of a story that became a script for the hopeless. So, let's rebuild the events with this logical lens. A terrible crime happens. A man flees and, in a panic, jumps into a wild river. His body is lost in a perfect storm of bad luck and difficult terrain. A grieving family, in their profound pain, hears things that aren't there. A few coincidental sightings by drivers, fueled by a growing local legend, cement the idea of a ghost. The legend itself, now alive, draws other troubled souls to the spot. It feeds on itself. It grows in the telling. What you have is not a paranormal event. You have a perfect, tragic storm of human psychology, bad luck, and terrible timing. This explanation is clean. It is rational. It fits in the world we know. But here is the final question, and it is the most important one. Does this logical explanation make the bridge feel any less haunted when you stand there? Does it erase the chill? When you hear the river roar and feel that weight in your chest, does it matter if it's in your mind or in the air? The fear is real. The sadness is real. The mystery is real. Maybe the truth isn't about what is out there. Maybe the truth is about what happens inside of us when we confront the unknown. The logical explanation answers the how, but it never quite touches the why we feel what we feel. And that feeling is where the real story has always lived. We began with a question. What really happened on the Stony Creek Bridge? And after all this, we have not one answer, but two competing ones. The first story is made of official facts and statistics. It is a story of a tragic crime, a missing body, a grieving family, and a series of terrible coincidences. It is the world of reports and logic. It is the story that tries to close the book. The second story is made of community memory and feeling. It is a story of phantom phone calls, a silent figure that watches, a heavy sadness in the air, and a doorway that should not be open. It is the world of whispers and chills. It is the story that refuses to let the book close. But I want to tell you about the third story. It is the most important one. It is the story that lives in the space between the other two. It is not made of facts, and it is not made of ghosts. It is made entirely of uncertainty. And that uncertainty is the most powerful force of all. Think about it. If the body had been found in 1987, the story ends. If the phone calls had been traced to a prankster, the mystery ends. If the figure on the bridge was always just a trick of the light, the legend ends. But none of that happened. Every single avenue was left open. Every door was left unlocked. The universe provided no clean answers, and nature, as we know, hates a vacuum. It rushes in to fill empty spaces. When a human mind is faced with a void of uncertainty, it does the same thing. It rushes in. It fills the space with the only things it has: story, emotion, fear, and hope. The third story is the one we are all telling right now. You and me. It is the act of looking at that gap, that unknown, and trying to bridge it with our imagination. The bridge is not haunted by a ghost. It is haunted by a question mark. And a question mark is a shape that has no end. It is a loop. It goes around and around forever. This is the revelation. The supernatural element here is not a spirit. It is sustained doubt. The collective, decades-long act of wondering, what if? That wondering has energy. It has weight. When the community tells the story to their children, They are adding a brick to an invisible structure. When a driver feels a chill and speeds up, they are adding a shiver to the atmosphere. When you listen to this, questioning and feeling that curiosity, you are adding your own attention to the mix. We are not observers of this story. We are participants. We are the ones keeping the wound open because we cannot stand to see it heal over an unanswered question. So, where does that leave the man from 1987? Or the woman from 1989? Or the feeling on the bridge? They are no longer just people or events. They have become symbols. They have become characters in a play we are all writing together. The figure on the bridge is no longer a man. He is the physical form of our collective what if. The phone calls are no longer a signal. They are the sound of our need for connection. For one more clue, the heavy air is not a ghostly presence. It is the weight of all our looking, all our thinking, all our worrying, focused on one single, lonely spot on the map. This changes everything. It means the haunting is not something you go to see. It is something you bring with you. It is the part of you that needs mysteries to be real, the part that hopes, in a dark corner of your heart, that there is more than just this world. The bridge is just a mirror. It reflects back the part of us that cannot accept a simple, sad ending. We want a better story. We want a mystery. We need to believe that a person can leave more than just a memory, that they can leave an echo. So, the next time you think of the Stony Creek Bridge, understand this. You are not thinking of a place. You are thinking of a question. And as long as that question remains, the story is alive. It is breathing. It is growing. The third story is our story, and it will live as long as we keep looking into the dark water and wondering what is looking back. The bridge will be there. The water will flow, and the question will wait for you. It has all the time in the world. So, where does this leave us? After everything we've explored, the missing body, the phone calls, the figure that vanishes, the weight of all those years, we are left with two clear stories. The first story is made of facts and logic. It says, this is all a terrible but explainable tragedy. A lost body, a family's deep grief, strange coincidences, and a sad reputation that draws people in. It is the world we know. The second story is made of whispers and feelings. It speaks of recordings in the steel, of a conscious spirit, of a door left open in that place. It is the world of the unknown. But the truth of Stony Creek Bridge is the third story. And the third story is yours. It is the story we tell in the empty space between what we can prove and what we feel. That space is where the real haunting lives. It is not a ghost. It is a question that was never answered. And a question without an answer has no end. It just echoes. The people of this community have kept that echo alive for decades. Every time they warn a teenager, every time they share the tale, every time a driver calls the police, they are adding a thread to a living tapestry. They are not just remembering. They are building. They are building a place where mystery is allowed to live. The bridge itself, with its cold height and its roaring water, is the perfect stage. But we are the ones who write the play again and again. This means the man on the bridge is more than a man. He is a symbol. He is the shape we give to our own curiosity and to our own fear. The chill you feel thinking about him is real, but it comes from inside you. It comes from the part of you that needs the world to have mysteries, that needs to believe there is more than just the concrete and the steel. The bridge is a mirror. It shows us what we carry inside. So, the next time you pass a lonely place, a place with a dark history, you will understand. You are not just passing a spot on a map, you are passing a story. And if you pause, if you listen, you might feel the weight of all the people who have wondered about it before you. That weight is the true haunting. It is the sound of 1,000 people asking, what if? The story of Stony Creek Bridge is not over. It cannot be over. Because as long as we share it, as long as we feel that chill and ask that question, we are keeping it alive. We become part of its history. And maybe that was the point all along. Thank you for watching and for listening. If this journey into the unknown resonated with you, if it made you think or feel something, please let us know. Like this video and subscribe to stay with us for more explorations of the stories hidden in plain sight. The world is full of them. You just have to know how to listen.